The air over Leyte was thick with humidity and gun smoke when the scouts from Company F stepped off the road and into the bamboo. It was October 28, 1944, and the 7th Infantry Division was pushing inland toward the Philippine town of Dagami. At the very front of the assault platoon moved a quiet rifleman from Idaho, Private First Class Leonard Brostrom. In an infantry company on the attack, the lead scout is the first man in the file, the one who draws the first burst of fire and the first to stumble into an ambush. That morning, Brostrom was about to find out just how much depended on the man at the point. Before we continue, I want to mention the Medal of Honor book series that accompanies this work. These books tell the stories of America's Medal of Honor recipients in a serious, readable, and historically grounded format, with each volume focused on a specific campaign, battle, or part of the war. They are available in color paperback, Kindle ebook, and matching audiobook editions. You can find them at militaryauthor.me. This is Beyond the Call, Medal of Honor Stories, the Monday feature of Dispatch, U.S. military history magazine developed by Trackpads.com. In this episode, we follow Leonard C. Brostrom from farm fields in Idaho through frozen tundra and coral atolls to a single desperate charge outside Dagami that broke a fortified line and cost him his life. Leonard Brostrom was born on November 23, 1919, in Preston, Idaho, a small farming community tucked into Cache Valley near the Utah border. He was the oldest child of Carl and Louise Brostrom, and early life for Leonard meant chores before school, long days in the fields, and winters that could lock the valley in snow and ice. The Great Depression pressed on families like his, so work was constant and money was always tight. That world of steady effort and mutual dependence quietly shaped how he saw responsibility and sacrifice. It built a young man who did not talk much about himself, but who showed up and did what needed doing. Leonard's schooling centered on the old Oneida Stake Academy in Preston, a brick landmark built by local members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In its classrooms and meeting halls, he blended ordinary schoolwork with church activities, community events, and ball games on rough fields. Outside of class, he took odd jobs where he could find them, helped provide food by hunting and fishing, and learned to stretch every dollar. Faith and family were not abstract ideas for him. They were the framework that held the community together when times were hard. From early on, he knew what it meant to serve others without expecting attention in return. As a young man, Leonard accepted a mission call from his church and went to California for 3 years. Missionaries lived simply and spent their days walking streets, knocking on doors, and speaking with strangers about what they believed. The work demanded patience, a thick skin, and a deep sense of purpose, because most conversations did not lead anywhere. For Leonard, those years also widened his view of the world beyond the valley where he had grown up. He saw coastal cities and new communities, met people from many backgrounds, and carried the habits of discipline and endurance that mission life required. Those habits would later echo in his quiet persistence as a soldier. While he was still on that mission, the world changed. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. News of the attack spread quickly, and like many young Americans, Leonard soon faced a different kind of calling. Once he completed the service he had promised to his church, he returned home to Preston and enlisted in the United States Army in March 1942. The move from missionary to soldier seems dramatic, but in both roles he was answering a demand larger than himself, and that sense of duty carried straight into his training. The Army sent him first to Fort Ord, California for basic training. There he learned to handle an M1 Garand rifle, march in formation, dig fighting positions, and navigate with a map and compass. The days were long and the training relentless, but Leonard had grown up with long days and steady work. He was assigned to the 7th Motorized Division, soon reorganized as the 7th Infantry Division, and moved with them to Camp San Luis Obispo. Initially, the division trained for desert warfare in the Mojave, learning to maneuver trucks and armored vehicles across scorching sand. Soldiers like Brostrom learned how to endure heat, dust, and monotony while staying focused on their tasks. Plans shifted, as they often did in wartime. Instead of North Africa, the 7th Infantry Division was retasked for the Pacific and converted from a motorized formation into light infantry trained for amphibious assaults. Under Marine instructors, the soldiers practiced loading into landing craft, hitting beaches under simulated fire, and spreading out quickly over unfamiliar ground. They rehearsed how to move past obstacles, how to clear bunkers, and how to maintain momentum when the first rush stalled. By the time training ended, Leonard was a seasoned rifleman in Company F, 2nd Battalion, 17th Infantry Regiment, ready to put those drills to the test in real combat. His first major battle came not in the tropics but on a treeless, frozen island near the end of the Aleutian chain Attu. In May 1943, the 7th Infantry Division landed there to drive out Japanese forces occupying American soil. The men had trained in desert heat, but Attu greeted them with sleet, fog, and sucking tundra. Weapons jammed with ice, boots and uniforms stayed wet for days, and visibility often disappeared in swirling mist. Company F went ashore on a designated beach and pushed inland, fighting up steep ridges and through ravines where every step forward came under fire. On Attu, Leonard and his comrades learned what close-in infantry combat against dug-in defenders truly meant. They advanced by small rushes from one fold of ground to the next, firing rifles, throwing grenades, and sometimes using bayonets to clear trenches and foxholes. A feature known as Cold Mountain became a focus of their efforts, a symbol of the punishing terrain they had to master. The battle ended with a massive banzai charge, as Japanese soldiers rushed the American lines in a final, desperate attack that was stopped only by disciplined fire at very close range. Those days on Attu taught Brostrom how to keep moving under terrible conditions and how to function calmly in the middle of chaos. After Attu, the division returned to Hawaii for rest, refitting, and more training. Snow and tundra gave way to palm trees and coral sand, but the work remained serious and demanding. The division prepared for a new operation, the capture of Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. This time, the assault waves went ashore on narrow strips of sand backed by bunkers, trenches, and concrete positions. Naval gunfire and airstrikes pounded the targets first, but it still fell to infantrymen like Brostrom to move across the beaches, close with surviving defenders, and clear each island by hand. On Kwajalein, Leonard's experience and steady temperament helped him and those around him move through the fear and confusion of amphibious assault. The regiment advanced from one island to the next, each secured in turn. The lessons from Attu and Kwajalein were clear. Success often depended on identifying and destroying a few key strongpoints at exactly the right time. The soldiers learned to recognize the telltale signs of a bunker or pillbox, to use terrain for cover, and to coordinate their efforts under fire. Those skills would matter greatly when the war carried them to the Philippines. By October 1944, the 7th Infantry Division was part of the force landing on Leyte in the central Philippines. The broader campaign aimed to cut Japan's supply lines and fulfill the pledge to return to the islands. The division came ashore on Leyte's east coast on October 20th, pushing inland along muddy roads and trails that quickly turned to churned-up muck in the tropical rain. Within days, units from the division had captured important airfields and towns, opening up space for Allied aircraft and tightening the grip on Japanese defenses. The town of Dagami, located south and west of the initial landings, became an important objective. Japanese forces dug in around it, building a belt of fortifications that included pillboxes, trenches, and camouflaged fighting pits. A pillbox is a small, hardened bunker, usually built from logs, earth, or concrete, with narrow firing slits. When tied into a network of trenches and covered pits, such positions can pour machine gun fire into open ground while remaining difficult to spot. On October 27th, Leonard's regiment fought hard to take several of these strongpoints near Dagami, reducing the outer defenses but not breaking them entirely. At first light on October 28th, Company F moved out once more, tasked with enveloping Dagami from the left. The landscape was a patchwork of fields, ditches, patches of bamboo, and tree lines where the enemy could hide. As lead scout for the assault platoon, Brostrom stepped into his usual place at the very front. A scout in that role reads terrain for the entire unit, testing each bit of cover and watching for any flash of movement that might signal danger. It is work that requires calm nerves and a willingness to be the first to risk death for the sake of those behind. As the platoon advanced, the trap ahead came alive. Machine guns and rifles erupted from camouflaged pillboxes and trenches that had been invisible moments earlier. Bullets slashed through the air, striking men who tried to move or lift their heads. The central pillbox in the position commanded the approaches, its fire overlapping with that of nearby gun pits, turning the open ground into a killing zone. In those first seconds, the platoon was pinned to the earth, unable to move forward and taking casualties with every attempt to shift position. From his spot near the front, Leonard assessed the situation quickly. Working forward under fire, he made his way toward one of the outlying positions that formed part of the strongpoint's protective ring. Using whatever dips and clumps of vegetation he could find, he closed the distance and hurled grenades into the firing slit. The explosion silenced that gun and cut off some of the overlapping fire, buying the platoon a fragile moment of relief. It was aggressive, skillful work from a scout who understood that taking out a supporting position could ease pressure on the men caught in the open. Yet the main pillbox still raked the field, and the platoon remained in a deadly bind. According to accounts, Brostrom was ordered to withdraw from his exposed position. Instead, he rose and charged directly toward the heart of the enemy line. Crossing open ground under intense fire, he was hit and knocked to the ground. On many battlefields, that would have been the end of a soldier's fight. Leonard dragged himself up, pushed forward again, and kept closing the distance. He pressed his attack by throwing grenades into another enemy position, knocking it out of action. Wounded again, he did not stop. He kept moving until he reached the main pillbox itself. There, he pulled the pins on his remaining grenades and dropped them into the firing slit, destroying the crew that had held his platoon down. Even as he staggered away from the bunker, he kept firing his rifle at nearby foxholes and supporting positions, disrupting any attempt by the defenders to re-establish their fire. Only when his strength finally failed did he collapse. His one-man assault broke the backbone of the strongpoint and opened the way for his comrades. With the central bunker destroyed and several surrounding positions shattered, the nature of the fight changed almost at once. The same patch of ground that had been a killing zone moments earlier now became the route of advance. Soldiers from Company F rose from the mud and rushed the remaining trenches and pits, firing and throwing grenades as they moved. The fortified line that had threatened to halt the advance on Dagami was overrun. In practical terms, Leonard had done the work that supporting tanks or heavy weapons might have done elsewhere, tearing open the key position at exactly the moment it needed to fall. Medics and fellow soldiers scrambled to reach him and pull him back from the front edge of the captured position. His wounds were severe, and despite their efforts, he did not survive. For the men of Company F, the memory of that morning remained fixed to the image of a quiet Idaho farm boy refusing to stay down. In the days and months that followed, as the division fought on in the Philippines and across the Pacific, the story of his charge spread through the regiment as a clear example of courage at the point of contact. After the war, the United States Army formally recognized Leonard Carl Brostrom's actions with the Medal of Honor, awarded posthumously. The official citation described how he advanced in the face of intense enemy fire, refused to withdraw despite repeated wounds, and destroyed the enemy's key positions at the cost of his own life. For his parents and brothers in Preston, the medal represented both the nation's gratitude and a lasting reminder of the son and brother they had lost. For his comrades, it put into words what they already knew, that Leonard had gone beyond what anyone could reasonably ask. Today, Leonard Brostrom's name appears on hometown memorials, in regimental histories, and on lists of Idaho's fallen from World War II. His story marks the path of an entire generation that left farms, towns, and cities to fight on distant shores. He is remembered as the boy who grew up working the fields, the young man who accepted a mission call, and the rifleman who faced some of the harshest campaigns in the Pacific. The arc from Preston to Attu, Kwajalein, and Leyte sketches not just a military career but a life shaped by service in many forms. His actions near Dagami also highlight the importance of the lead scout, a role often mentioned only in passing in campaign summaries. The scout's task is to step into uncertainty first, to sense danger before others feel it, and to absorb the risk that would otherwise fall on the rest of the platoon. Leonard's final decision to rise and charge the pillbox grew out of that instinct to protect the men behind him, brought to its highest expression in a moment of extreme crisis. He did not have rank or heavy weapons on his side, yet the course of the fight turned on his willingness to move toward the source of the greatest danger. For students of military history, Leonard C. Brostrom's life offers a vivid example of how individual character and training can intersect with the unforgiving demands of ground combat. His Medal of Honor acknowledges not only one dramatic act under fire, but also the long chain of choices that led him there, answering calls to serve, enduring harsh training and brutal campaigns, and consistently doing difficult work at the point where enemy and friendly forces met. When we remember him, we honor a scout who truly went beyond the call, giving his life so that his platoon could break through and carry the advance forward. This has been the story of Private First Class Leonard Carl Brostrom, United States Army, World War II Medal of Honor recipient. For For Dispatch U.S. Military History Magazine, this is Beyond the Call Medal of Honor Stories, developed by Trackpads.com.